Hey, what's up guys? Mike Patrick. In this video I want to talk about why it is important for so-called African Americans to understand their history, their true history, and different histories that you may have not been taught about some of your ancestors. I want to talk about why anyone, no matter what so-called race you are, why it's important for you to understand your history. If you don't know where you have been, then you don't know where you are going. And also, you don't know your identity. All right? So now, I'm going to make this video really quick and hit the point. Basically, guys, look at it this way. You were not slaves at first, okay? You were not slaves when you first came to the Americas. For those of us who were brought to the Americas from different places, or for those of us who were sent to different parts of the world, you were not slaves. You were prisoners of war. Now, why is that important that you understand that? This is important for you to understand because it has a lot to do with your self-esteem. It's a big difference between a prisoner of war and a slave. If someone told you that your ancestors were slaves, you kind of feel down about that, okay? It kind of lowers your self-esteem. Well, why were we slaves, okay? How did my ancestors allow themselves to be slaves? What happened for us to be downgraded or degenerated to a point that we were slaves? All right? Well, you became slaves after a certain amount of generations, but at first you were prisoners of war. Now, what is the difference? The difference is prisoners of war are not slaves. They are people who may be losing a war at a particular point in time, but they don't carry themselves or act like slaves. Slaves are people who willingly allow themselves to be subject and of servitude to someone else, okay? A lot of our ancestors were captured and like I said, brought to different places, but they were not willingly working for people, okay? They were burning down crops. They were burning down so-called plantations. They were killing a lot of people who were capturing them and trying to keep them captured. All right. The only time that you kind of really hear about that is maybe the Nat Turner story. That's it. Okay. But there was a whole lot of prisoner of war rebellions early on, okay? Then what happened is the people who captured some of your ancestors, what happened was they was running into so much strife and turmoil and issues, okay, that they had to seek out aristocrats from different parts of Europe, okay, and different parts of the world to give them some type of format, some type of plan that they could put into use in order to break the will of the prisoners of war. Okay, so that's when things like the Willie Lynch letter came about, and there were other manifestos and other plans, okay, that's not so popular. That's why it was extremely important for them to break people mentally. It wasn't just about having someone to work for you and work for free and forcing them to do that. That's why a lot of your ancestors had to be broken mentally. All right. So what happened was the people who were being rebellious, who still had that spirit, they were sent away to different plantations, separated from their children, and then therefore they were not able to give their children a rundown on their history and who they were. So then now you had the oppressors educating the young children, and so now over a series of generations, you know, now you're starting to breed slaves, because now they weren't being told that they were just primitive people that came from sub-Saharan sub parts of Africa and things of that nature, West Africa and things of that nature, and that they were primitive, okay? And so now when you start to believe that, that's a different mentality. If you think that you just come from a jungle in Africa swinging from trees like you were a monkey or a primate, it's a big difference in the self-esteem of a person who believes they come from that and a person who believes that they come from royalty or great civilizations, okay? Now, everybody wasn't royalty, but we did come from very, very sophisticated civilizations, okay? Now, you can get into different reasons how we fell. You can, you know, there's different reasons for that, all right? So to keep this video short, so the first thing that has to happen is you have to have a better understanding of your history, a more in-depth understanding of your history, and then your self-esteem has to be worked on. And once your self-esteem is built back up, then you have integrity, okay? Then you have honor, okay? You have you know, where you begin to discipline yourself, okay? And you begin to have dignity, all right? And then you can start from there as far as building back up, all right? But definitely, if for any group of people whose ancestors have ever been slaves, the first thing that has to be restored is your history that was before you were slaves, and then all the pride, and like I said, the honor and the integrity and respect for self, and all those things have to be restored, and then you can go from there, all right? So that's the foundation. So I just wanted to share that, guys. Hopefully this was an insightful video. Peace.